That gnawing sensation begins in your gut. It's a feeling of intense, vibrating impatience. You have a position. It is profitable. The analysis was correct, the entry was clean, and the market moved in your favor. But now, nothing. For days, maybe even weeks, the price has done little more than drift sideways, oscillating in a narrow band that feels like a prison. Your mind starts to race. You see other instruments making explosive moves. You feel the pull of action, the siren song of a new opportunity. The internal monologue is deafening. This stock is dead. I should just take the small profit and move on. I'm wasting time here. I could be compounding this capital elsewhere. This urge to act, to do something, is one of the most powerful and destructive forces an aspiring speculator will ever face. It feels productive, it feels smart, but it is the very impulse that separates the small winners from the truly wealthy. The reason this impulse is so strong is rooted deep in our psychology. We are conditioned to believe that effort equals results. In most areas of life, this is true. The harder you work, the more you study, the more you practice, the better the outcome. We equate activity with progress. And so, when we are faced with a situation that requires stillness, our brains scream that we are being lazy, that we are failing. The market, however, operates on a different set of principles. Here, frenetic activity is often a sign of amateurism. It is the nervous energy of the uninformed participant who mistakes trading for gambling. The gambler must always be placing a bet, pulling a lever, feeling the thrill of the game. The professional speculator, in stark contrast, understands that the most profitable action is often no action at all. Jesse Livermore, one of the greatest speculators to have ever lived, stated this with profound clarity. It was never my thinking that made the big money for me. It was always my sitting. He wasn't talking about sitting and doing nothing in the sense of being idle. He was talking about the disciplined act of sitting tight with a correct position, allowing a major trend to unfold to its logical conclusion. This is not just philosophy. It is rooted in the market's mechanical structure, as described by Richard Wyckoff. He articulated the universal law of cause and effect. Imagine building a fire. A small pile of kindling will produce a brief, small flame. A massive, well-constructed pyre of logs will burn for hours, creating immense heat and light. The market works in precisely the same way. The cause is the time and volume spent in a horizontal consolidation phase, what we call a trading range. During this time, large operators are either accumulating shares from weak hands at a low price or distributing shares to eager buyers at a high price. The longer this process takes, the more shares that change hands, the larger the cause being built. The effect is the subsequent trend, the markup or markdown phase that follows the consolidation. If you enter a trade at the beginning of a markup phase that emerged from a 10-month accumulation, you are positioned to ride a potentially enormous wave. But if your impatience causes you to exit for a small gain after the first week, you have effectively paid the full price of admission, the risk, the research, the emotional capital. But you left the theater before the main act even began. You gathered a piece of kindling when you could have harnessed the heat of the entire pyre. Sitting tight is the act of respecting the cause that has been built and having the fortitude to wait for the full effect to play out. So how does one mentally visualize this process? Especially without a screen in front of them. Imagine the price of a stock as a hiker ascending a great mountain. The hiker does not sprint vertically to the summit. That would lead to exhaustion and failure. Instead, the hiker walks up a steep path for a while, then finds a flat plateau to rest, catch their breath, and gather strength. After resting, they begin the next leg of the ascent. This is a healthy trend. The steep upward paths are the markup phases, the moments of clear progress. The flat plateaus are the reaccumulation ranges, the periods of pause and consolidation. The amateur trader gets excited during the ascent and terrified during the pause. They think the pause is the end of the journey. They sell their position on the plateau, just as the hiker is preparing for the next powerful move upward. The professional, however, recognizes the plateau for what it is, a necessary and healthy component of the trend. They see the lack of frantic activity not as a sign of weakness, but as a sign of strength. It is the market taking a breath. During these quiet periods, the volume of trading typically diminishes. Imagine the sound of the market turning down. The roar of the markup phase fades to a whisper. This quietness is a signal that sellers are exhausted and the large operators are in control, absorbing any shares that become available without having to push the price down. Sitting tight means having the patience to wait on that plateau with the skilled hiker, confident that the next ascent is being prepared. It is the mastery of waiting through the silence. Now, let's build an algorithm for this, a mental framework for the art of sitting tight. This is not about passive hope, it is about active, disciplined patience. First, the setup. You must have entered the trade based on a sound, logical premise. This means you didn't buy on a hot tip or a gut feeling. You bought because you identified the completion of a cause. Perhaps you saw a textbook accumulation phase followed by a sign of strength as the price moved out of the trading range. Your entry was at the last point of support, the first pullback after the breakout. You have a rational reason to believe a major uptrend. The effect is just beginning. Your conviction in your initial analysis is the bedrock of your ability to sit tight. Without it, any minor fluctuation will shake you out. Second, the trigger for action, or in this case, inaction. The default mode in a winning trade is to do nothing. Your job is not to find reasons to sell. Your job is to wait for the market to give you an undeniable reason to sell. What does such a reason look like? It could be a buying climax, where the price suddenly surges vertically on astronomical volume, a clear sign of euphoric exhaustion. It could be the appearance of a major sign of weakness, where the price plunges on heavy volume, indicating that large institutions are now sellers. It could be a clear break of a major trend line that has been supporting the advance. Until one of these clear objective signals appears, your finger stays off the sell button. You are ignoring the noise, the minor pullbacks, the sideways days, the news headlines, and focusing only on the primary evidence of the trend's health. Third, and most critically, is how you protect your capital and your profits while you wait. Sitting tight is not sitting blind. It requires intelligent risk management through a trailing stop loss. Imagine you are on a ship sailing from one continent to another. You don't jump into a lifeboat every time you hit a patch of choppy water. However, you do have the lifeboats ready in case the ship genuinely starts to sink. A trailing stop is your lifeboat. When you first enter the trade, your initial protective stop is placed below a logical point of structure, for instance, below the low of the spring or the last point of support. Now, as the price moves up and establishes a new higher low, you move your stop loss up, placing it just below that new structural point. You are effectively locking in a portion of your profit. You continue this process methodically. As the trend makes a new leg up and then consolidates, creating another higher low, you trail your stop up again. This accomplishes two things. It protects your capital from a catastrophic reversal, and it forces you to remain objective. Your exit is not based on fear or greed. It is based on the price violating the established upward structure. You are allowing the market to stop you out, rather than letting your emotions make the decision. To truly internalize these concepts, the serious man must return to the source. The foundation of modern technical analysis is contained within Richard Wyckoff's masterpiece, How I Trade and Invest in Stocks and Bonds. This is the original timeless wisdom, presented in the annotated edition by Max Davidson. The annotations provide necessary context and clarity for the modern environment, ensuring the original principles of trading as a serious business, risk management, and judging the market by its own action are preserved. The link to this book is in the description below. This foundational knowledge is what transforms a speculator from a button pusher into a market strategist, someone who understands the profound value of disciplined inaction. The trailing stop is the mechanical tool that allows the psychological battle to be won. It automates the decision to exit if the trend fails, freeing your mind to focus on the one thing that matters, letting the winner run. Let's consider the different scenarios you will face when attempting to master this skill. The first scenario is the ideal one. You enter a position, the stock begins a powerful, clear uptrend. It has several markup phases interspersed with brief, orderly consolidations. During the consolidations, volume dries up beautifully. You methodically trail your stop loss up under each successive higher low. The trend continues for months, and your initial small profit blossoms into a substantial gain. Finally, the character of the market changes. You see a massive spike in volume as the price goes parabolic, a classic buying climax. That is your signal. You sell into that strength, capturing the lion's share of a major move. This is the outcome we all strive for, and it is only possible through sitting tight. The second scenario is far more common and psychologically taxing. You enter a trade and it works initially, giving you a modest profit. Then it enters a consolidation phase that seems to last forever. For weeks, even months, the price goes nowhere. This is the true test of patience. The temptation to abandon ship is immense. Here, you must revert to your analytical skills. Is the trading range showing signs of accumulation or distribution? If the volume on downswings within the range is light and the volume on upswings is heavier, that's constructive. If the price refuses to break below key support within the range, that is also constructive. As long as the evidence points towards reaccumulation rather than distribution, your job is to wait. You are waiting for the cause to be fully built. Many of the greatest market moves are preceded by these frustratingly long periods of dullness. The crowd gets bored and leaves, selling their shares to the patient operators who are willing to wait for the real move. The third scenario is when the trade fails. You enter based on a valid setup, but the expected markup fails to materialize. Instead, after a brief move in your favor, the price rolls over, breaks its structure, and hits your trailing stop. This is not a failure of the sitting tight principle. It is a success of your risk management plan. The market is a game of probabilities, not certainties. Not every valid setup will lead to a glorious trend. Sometimes the analysis is wrong, or market conditions change. The purpose of sitting tight is to maximize the gains on your winners. The purpose of a stop loss is to minimize the damage from your losers. A professional accepts these small, manageable losses as a standard cost of doing business. The emotional mistake is to view a stopped-out trade as a personal failure. It is not. It is the system working as intended, protecting your capital so that you can redeploy it on the next high-probability opportunity. The discipline of sitting tight on winners is funded by the discipline of cutting losers short. The two are inseparable. In essence, the entire business of speculation can be distilled into a simple but not easy mandate. Cut your losses quickly and let your profits run. Everyone pays lip service to this idea, but few have the mental fortitude to execute it. Cutting losses requires humility, the ability to admit you are wrong. Letting profits run requires supreme patience and the ability to withstand the psychological discomfort of inaction. It demands that you trust your initial analysis more than your fleeting daily emotions. The market does not reward frequency of action. It rewards correctness of judgment and conviction. The big money is not made in the buying or the selling. It is made in the waiting. It is made in the quiet months between the exciting entry and the climactic exit. It is in these periods of quiet observation that your account grows, shielded by a logical trailing stop, powered by the underlying force of a major trend. This is the hardest work you will do as a speculator, the work of doing nothing. So the next time you find yourself in a profitable trade that has gone quiet, Resist the urge to act. Before you press the sell button, ask yourself a series of rational questions. Has the market given me a definitive, objective signal that the trend is over? Has a buying climax occurred? Has a major sign of weakness appeared on high volume? Has the fundamental structure of higher highs and higher lows been broken? If the answer to these questions is no, then the feeling you are experiencing is not a valid market signal. It is simply your own internal impatience, your own flawed human desire for constant stimulation. Recognize it for what it is: noise. Your task is to filter out that noise and listen to the market's true message, which is often conveyed in silence, in the quiet contraction of volume and volatility that precedes the next great expansion. Mastery in this domain is not about predicting the future. It is about aligning yourself with the present reality of the trend, and having the discipline to stay aligned until the evidence proves that the trend has changed. If you wish to understand the market's deeper rhythms, to learn the language of price and volume, stay with us. The journey continues.